the most famous ship in the world, whose story turned from a real-life tragedy into a legend told in movies and books. The legendary British ship, the Titanic, whose maiden voyage was also its final journey. Its trip started with hope and pride and ended in a disaster that history will never forget. A short journey that lasted only a few days, but it was etched into human memory forever. Only a handful of people survived the sinking, and the rest were victims of one of the most horrific disasters the world has ever seen. The shock was global, and many people were affected by it, whether they were close to the accident or thousands of miles away. And with over 100 years having passed since the tragedy, the story still captivates people's minds, and the question keeps coming up. Why is the Titanic still at the bottom of the ocean? In a time when we can reach Mars and perform surgeries with robots, why couldn't we retrieve the ship from the sea? Especially a ship with that kind of size and history, so we can know the whole truth and learn from what happened. But before we get started, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you get our videos as soon as they drop. The Titanic, a maritime marvel, was the ultimate symbol of luxury and progress at the time. It was built by the British company White Star Line to compete with the biggest and grandest ships in the world. It was equipped with the latest safety technology and was called the unsinkable ship. It was so luxurious that first-class passengers lived like royalty. On April 10, 1912, its first journey began from the port of Southampton, headed for New York. The trip was full of hope and pride, with an elite group of the world's wealthiest people on board, as well as a large number of immigrants looking for a new start. 4 days of relative calm in the Atlantic Ocean. Passengers were enjoying the luxurious amenities, music, fine dining, and a life that didn't feel like being at sea at all. But on the night of April 14th, everything changed. The lookout spotted a strange object, and it was a giant iceberg. The captain ordered a maneuver, but the ship couldn't avoid the collision. The hull was ripped open, and water started gushing in. The Titanic wasn't prepared for the situation, despite all the talk about its safety. The number of lifeboats was not enough, which made things worse. A panic swept the place, and most people lost all hope of surviving. In the early hours of April 15th, the Titanic vanished beneath the surface of the ocean, and darkness fell. The story of the sinking wasn't just another news item. Newspapers screamed with headlines, "The unsinkable ship has sunk." The whole world was in shock. Survivors talked about the moments of terror, about heroes who tried to save others, and about final goodbyes between loved ones and friends. Each testimony was a page from a human tragedy. People demanded investigations, and officials were held accountable. The sinking of the Titanic became a turning point in ship safety regulations. Despite the years that have passed, the memory hasn't faded. Many people were interested in the idea of recovering the ship, but the location of the wreck was unknown, and the ocean currents made any search attempt complicated. Some people proposed scientific solutions, and others came up with imaginary ideas. But there was no consensus, and the technology wasn't advanced enough. The World Wars delayed any project to search for the ship until 1985, which changed everything. A joint expedition led by Robert Ballard finally managed to reach the ship's wreck. The journey took years of preparation, but the result was worth it. The wreckage was at a depth of 3,800 meters and was spread over a massive area. Some parts of the ship were preserved, while others had completely collapsed. The explorers discovered that the Titanic had broken in half before it hit the ocean floor. This explained why the wreck was so widely scattered. What's even more bizarre is that a rare type of bacteria that eats iron has started consuming the ship's hull, which means the wreck's lifespan is limited. Scientists decided to leave the wreck where it was, under the protection of UNESCO, to preserve it as much as possible and prevent any damage. And even though the ship wasn't raised, some items were salvaged. Tools, personal belongings, dishes, and watches have all been displayed in museums around the world. Traveling exhibitions brought the Titanic story to people who didn't know much about it, and some of the artifacts have attracted millions of visitors. Tourism companies have started offering virtual reality tours, where visitors can experience being on the ship. 3D imaging projects have documented the ship's details, which helps researchers study the condition without touching the wreck. Even in education, there are now courses that tell the story of the Titanic from a scientific, historical, and human perspective. The global interest hasn't stopped, which confirms that the story is still alive. In 2012, the whole world celebrated the 100th anniversary of the disaster, and huge events were held in more than one country. Those who were absent from the first journey attended its anniversary a century later. And even though the wreck is in a continuous state of deterioration, technology is trying to document everything before it's too late. There are current plans to create a complete digital model of the ship at its real size so that future generations can imagine its greatness. At the same time, new laws have been implemented to prevent any attempts to get close to the wreck site without a special permit. Some divers have been prohibited from taking pictures or approaching to preserve what remains of the ship. The world has decided to leave the ship where it is, as a memorial at the bottom of the ocean. There are studies that analyze the impact of the tragedy on the development of maritime technology, and multiple scenarios that simulate how the disaster could have been avoided if it happened today. Universities have started teaching the accident as a complex case that combines group psychology, engineering, and management. There are even online communities with thousands of people who share analyses, drawings, and theories. There are even video games inspired by the ship, where players try to survive or reenact the events. All of this confirms that the story is still going on, and the new generation is still looking for answers. Educational initiatives are using the story of the Titanic to teach leadership under pressure and crisis decision-making. The development of virtual reality technology has allowed for the interactive reconstruction of the sinking moments, which people can experience as if they were there. And over time, initiatives have appeared to preserve underwater historical sites, and the Titanic has become a model to follow. There are research teams that monitor the changes happening to the wreck year after year using advanced underwater robots. And every time a new discovery is made, we learn more details about the passengers' lives and the ship's design. And the dream is still alive that one day we'll be able to retrieve the ship. Share your thoughts in the comments. What part of the Titanic story affected you the most? And if you have any strange topics or historical secrets you want us to talk about, write them in the comments, and we'll see you in the next video.